Hi there. All right, so today I'm going to be walking through how to develop a Tableau dashboard, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about how to create a Tableau story once we've created that dashboard. And essentially, a Tableau story is building using the data in pieces and parts to build a narrative of the importance of our data and the findings that we've found. And it allows us to take that process step by step in order to emphasize key parts of the data that we want to emphasize. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into how to create a Tableau dashboard. Now, here in front of me, you see that I already have Tableau open and several sheets with plots in them. I had already created this before this particular video, just as an example of the type of plots that we'll be creating. We'll be creating two histograms, two bar plots, a scatter plot with a trend line, and then we'll be breaking that scatter plot into sections based upon different variables that we have here in our data set. And you'll be able to see some of the different things that we can do as we get ready to build this dashboard. And here's what the dashboard looks like once it's already been created, with our variables over here to the side. Okay, so first I'm going to walk through how I went about creating all these plots in order to create our dashboard here. So I'm going to open a new Tableau. Once Tableau loads, there we go. I don't know what that is, so I'm going to pop over here and load our data set. Oops. I want to be sure to select the right file. In this case, my file was an Excel file, so I'm going to locate my data set and click Open. And all right, here we see our data has been imported. The first thing we're going to want to do is create our histogram of our criterion and outcome variables. So let's see. There we have our histogram of performance tab. And to get that histogram, we're going to select performance. And then we're going to go over here to the Show Me tab at the top right corner there. And we're going to select this green box. And we're going to hit, once we click that, we'll see that our histogram gets displayed. Now with this particular data set, we're looking at performance in sales of a range of employees from an organization that are selling different food items, different clothing items, and different electronics. So you have different sales employees that are selling different types of goods, right? Okay, but let's keep moving right along here. I'm going to create another sheet to create our second histogram. And again, we take the same steps, just with different variables. And this time we're selecting job satisfaction. And we're selecting our histogram again. And there we see our histogram for job satisfaction. All right, now we're going to be creating our bar plots. Gender, let's see. Oops. No, we're not ready to create the dashboard yet, but I want to add another sheet. Oops. Job type. There we go. All right. So now that we've created these, as you can probably guess, we're going to create some bar plots. And to do that, we are going to take our number of records variable here, and we're going to slot that into the rows. Oops, no, just kidding. We're going to slot that into the columns, and then we're going to slot our variable of interest. And this, for this plot, it is gender. And there we see we have our number of employees, in this case number of records, but that's number of employees for this example. And then we have our gender variables in our plot. Our next bar plot is for job type. That's our third level variable. So what we're going to do is, again, we're going to throw numbers of our employees into the columns row, and then we're going to select job type. And there we have our different types of employee sales goods, and we'll see that, for example, food is the most sold by employees. But okay, so now we're going to create, let's see, looking at our performance and satisfaction predictor and outcome variable there. So next we're going to create our scatter plot. All right. And it is going to be satisfaction in the rows row there, and then performance in the columns row, and you'll see that this one point comes up because these variables are summed, but we're going to select dimension for each of these. Once we do that, you'll see that our scatter plot is displayed, but let's go ahead and throw a trend line in there, and to do that we're going to click analytics, and then we're going to click on trend line and drag it over, and there we see we have our trend line for our scatter plot. This would be our this is pretty simple scatter plot. There we go. All right. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate our scatter plot that we just created, and I'm going to throw in some variables, right? So this is scatter by gender again. And then we're going to pop over here and go ahead and create another tab for our job type variable. Oops. Type, there we go. All right. And to do that, we are going to throw gender into the colors box here. And once we do that, we see that the different data points are separated based upon whether or not those employees are either female or male. And we're going to do a similar thing where we throw in, oops, just kidding. Let's duplicate that again. Instead of creating a new sheet here, we'll go ahead and delete that. There we go. All right. So let's try this again. By job type. All right. But again, same as before we added our gender variable here. This time we're going to sort by job type, sort our scatter plot by job type. And to do that, we're going to throw, just add in the job type variable in the columns row, and we'll see that our data points are restricted to these key variables or key targets of sales, the area, the domain in which these employees sell. For example, like I said here, we have electronics, food, and retail. All right, so there are our two scatter plots. And then I'm going to, let's go ahead and duplicate this one more time. And let's see what those variables look like when they're thrown into the sheet together. Again, I just duplicated this here. So as we saw before, we'll just throw job type into the columns row there, and we'll see that those data points are further subdivided to include those that are participants' scores, performance and satisfaction scores, based on whether or not they are male or female, and whether or not they sold electronics, food, or retail. Okay, there we go. And let's go ahead and play around with our options that we have available to us in Tableau. So I'm just going to, let's say this would be our most advanced scatter plot for this example. And what we're going to do is add some filter options. And so we are going to filter female, or not female, but gender. So we're going to throw gender into the filters box. And this window is going to come up, and we see that all the variables that we are interested in, males and females for gender, are selected. So we're going to hit OK. And then we are going to click this drop down arrow and click Show Filter. And we'll see that allows us to interact with a filter in just a second. I'll demonstrate that. But let's go ahead and get our job type variable. And again, hitting OK there. And we're going to show that filter. And there we see we have a filter for job type and a filter for gender. And what a filter allows us to do is to deselect variables to focus on. Say if I wanted to focus on just males, I have that option by deselecting females. Similarly, if I wanted to focus on electronics and retail, I have that option. And you can play around with the variations of these checkboxes here, and that's what filtering allows you to do. But let's go ahead and add some more options here. So I also want a slider to be able to decide key variables that I want to select, or key data points I want to select rather than just key variables of interest. And to do that, we're going to also include our performance variable here. And we're just going to click Next here when this box comes up, and we're again just going to click OK there. Once we do that, we're going to select, make sure that we have dimension selected, and then we're going to click again Show Filter. And when we do that, we see we have a slider that appears, right? And similarly, we're going to do that for job satisfaction as well. And when this filter field comes up, we're just going to click Next again. Similarly, we're just going to click OK here because we've already established that it comes up pre-programmed there for our range for our slider. So we're just going to click OK again, and then just make that change where we make sure that our variable is in dimension, and then we are going to hit Select Filter. And that is how we create a dashboard that allows us to manipulate, well, not manipulate, but interact with the data in which we're interested. There we go. All right, now that we've done that, move our variables back here, we can create a dashboard that displays all these items, right? Okay. So let's display our advanced scatter plot here. And then let's just throw in each plot of interest. And moving around the dashboard window here, you'll see that the gray section indicates where we would like to plot the next plot. and you would just overlap there to allow for each plot to fit. Tableau is kind in that it likes to, or that it will sort the plots for you, or size the plots appropriately for you. And then we're just going to throw in our additional plots here. Here we go. Now, one thing we want the entire dashboard to be able to do is to function as we change these filters. So let me make sure. Oops. Let's try this again. Let's go ahead and delete this and go ahead and make these edits. And where we use this drop down arrow here to apply, make sure that we apply all these functions to our selected worksheets. In our advanced counter. Okay, these are the ones that we'll be displaying, and we're going to do that again for each, to make sure that each slider, or that each filter works within our dashboard. So again, we're going to select these, similar as before. There's actually a simpler way to do this. Here we go. I don't demonstrate that with this last one. There, we can actually go to apply to worksheets and click one of these options here where we allow all using this data source. And we'll see, again, when we go back and we create our dashboard, that we have, that we'll be able to better interact with these functions here. So again, just redoing what we did before here. But okay, so we saw how we were able to interact with our data with each plot, but because I made all those changes to our filters, what that allows me to do is when I change one filter, it changes the rest of my plots here in accordance to the variable that I have selected or not selected, as it were. Okay, that is how you create a dashboard in Tableau. So, as I mentioned before, I have already pre-programmed or pre-keyed in these different plots in our dashboards. But let's bop over to, so here we are in this data set, or in this worksheet of Tableau. Here's where we just ended, where we created our dashboard. Now I'm going to walk through a little bit of how to create a story in Tableau. And a story looks a bit like this. And so all you would do to create that story is, here you have a new Sheets window. This second tab is a new dashboard window, as you see there. And if I slide over, you'll see that this third little addition bar here, or symbol here, says new story. Once you click that, a new story window appears, and then we're able to interact with our data set and tell a story with our data. So for example, if I wanted to include, if I go back to the first story here, we'll start back from the beginning. Oop, now we're buffering. Okay. Oop. Okay. There we go. Now we're at the start. So, for example, here we are able to display our data, these different plots, separately, and then add a caption that lets us explain a little bit about what this data is telling us. So here we can see that we have a positive relationship in our scatter plot between employee performance and employee satisfaction. So what that means is as performance increases, in terms of employees selling more, the more they sell, the more happier they are likely to be. And we see that trend there with the data. But and next we're able to add our different variable, where we included gender in this case. So in the plot, or the caption there is, when we add gender, we see that both males and females exhibit a similar trend. And as performance increases, both males and females tend to become happier over time, to the point that these lines start to get closer and closer. And then we go to we just flow through the data here, through our story. We can click through, and we see that our next caption is that we have a similar trend between the employees that sell electronics, food, and retail. All right, so how did I create that story? I'm going to flip back over. I'll tell you what. Let's delete that there. And go back to our workbook. And I'm going to start building our story here. So to do that, I clicked our simple scatter plot first, right? And that's where I included my caption. Have a positive, yay. All right. And then over here we click, if we click blank, we see that it adds a new window or new sheet and a new caption for us to display additional variables as we saw in the other Tableau workbook. So now I'm going to include our variables. Again here, just including, oops. That tells me that because we deselected females here, make sure that all are selected. And you see how that information interacts with each other as we add variables. There we go. A similar trend. All right. And that is how we go about, and you'll see again adding an additional plot where we then add our information about our job types. But I'm going to go back to the window that I've already created. But you see, that is how you would insert each of these fields. In this case, key pieces of our data that we want to display separately and that we want to emphasize in one sheet, and then let the narrative build as we've analyzed the data and as we've picked up more and more information. And we see that our dashboard allows us to interact with that information. But all right. And there we see, as I click through this again, let's see, here we have our dashboard. This is a dashboard where no filter has been added, but the same data is being displayed. This is a dashboard where we have added a filter, and we see that it allows us to customize our dashboard based upon those filters that we select. So for example, in this diagram or this dashboard, I wanted to emphasize the female employees and their performance. And as I scroll down here, you can still see our histograms and our bars there. And we also see that we deselected food employees, female food employees. So we can emphasize key variables and or key participants or key employees that have participated in our survey here. All right. And then click at this arrow here. And there we have the final Tableau dashboard that we created earlier. As you'll see here, very same dashboard, but it's in our story now. And what this allows us to do is to, again, build the narrative of the importance of the key data and our key findings. And then this last dashboard allows us to interact with and deselect those key variables of interest. So if I wanted to select all, I have that option. If I wanted to deselect key variables, I have that option. So, but again, to reiterate, here we see that we have options available to us, and that is the purpose of this interactive dashboard and this interactive story. But yeah, there you go. Thanks for tuning in. Cheers.